Congenital adrenal hyperplasia. This is a very frequently tested pathology on the USMLE and is a headache for many doctors because it encompasses three very different diseases, each with distinct biochemical and clinical profiles. As such, we often believe that the only way to really tackle these diseases is by memorizing complex biochemical charts like this one. But in this video, with the help of a really simple strategy, I'll show you that that's not the case. Alright, so the first thing we need to understand is that there are three main genetic deficiencies that lead to adrenal hyperplasia. 21-hydroxylase, which is the most common, 11-beta-hydroxylase, and 17-alpha-hydroxylase. As we mentioned a moment ago, they present quite differently. We'll go into that in just a minute, but first we need to understand that they all share one common feature, which is low cortisol levels. And how does this present? Well, the three typical findings are hypoglycemia, failure to thrive, and hyperpigmentation. Now, why hyperpigmentation? Well, remember that when cortisol levels drop, the hypothalamus senses this drop and starts releasing CRH, which in turn increases ACTH production to stimulate cortisol synthesis. Under normal conditions, this would work, but in these conditions, the adrenal glands simply can't produce more cortisol, no matter how much ACTH is released. And so this creates a loop, a cycle, where chronically low levels of cortisol create an ever-rising increase in ACTH, which leads to two main problems. First, that this increase in ACTH stimulates and enlarges the adrenal glands. That's actually why this disease is called congenital adrenal hyperplasia. But second, and more to the original point, is that this increase in ACTH production results in elevated levels of ACTH precursors. And what is the precursor of ACTH? That's right, it's POMC, propionmelanocortin. And what you need to remember about this molecule is that it not only generates ACTH, but also MSH, melanocyte stimulating hormone. And this is actually the hormone, as the name suggests, that leads to hyperpigmentation. Okay, so that's what all these disorders have in common. But where do they differ? Well, basically in the other two layers of the adrenal glands. You see, some disorders increase mineralocorticoid production while others decrease it, and some increase androgen production while others decrease it. But how do you remember which does what? Well, here's the trick. Take a blank piece of paper and write each deficient enzyme on the left side and write M for mineralocorticoid and A for androgens on top. Then place the first number from each deficient enzyme in the first column, the one from the M, and the second number in the second column. Then replace all the ones with upward arrows and all the other numbers with downward arrows. And that's it. There you go. That simple trick will help you remember whether each deficiency leads to an increase in mineralocorticoids, a decrease in mineralocorticoids, an increase in androgens, or a decrease in androgens. So when facing a clinical case, just determine which direction the mineralocorticoids and androgens are going, then do this little trick either in a page or in your mind, and you'll easily arrive at the diagnosis. And in case you need a quick recap, remember that an increase in mineralocorticoids causes hypertension, hypernatremia, hypokalemia, and metabolic alkalosis. A decrease in mineralocorticoids causes the opposite, that is hypotension, hypernatremia, hyperkalemia, and metabolic alkalosis. An increase in androgens leads to early virilization in males and ambiguous genitalia or pseudo-hermaphroditism in females. And finally, a decrease in androgens leads to sexual infantilism in females and pseudo-hermaphroditism in males. I mentioned all of that very quickly for time's sake, but if you want a deeper recap on any of those findings, remember that you can always search the specific concept page in Lecturio or simply ask our AI assistant for specific questions. But for now, let's move forward and go through some cases to see how to apply this technique in practice. Alright, so here's our first case. Feel free to pause the video and take a couple of minutes to analyze it on your own. I'll assume you've already done that, so let's keep going and analyze the key findings, shall we? Okay, so first and foremost, we have hypocortisolism, right? That's the common feature. So that's not really helpful for the differential diagnosis. But next we have here hypertension, which is very, very important, which is actually crucial because hypertension only occurs in cases of increased mineralocorticoid production, right? Which means that from the three differentials we have, 21-hydroxylase deficiency has to be ruled out because that one, the arrow is going downwards. Okay, then as you can see here, we see ambiguous genitalia. So think about that. Does that suggest an increase or a decrease in androgens? Well, that suggests an increase in androgens, right? So if you think about it, this disease has to be the one with both arrows pointing upwards, and the only one matching that description is of course 11 beta hydroxylase deficiency. Now, an important point: the increased mineralocorticoid production in this disorder isn't mediated by aldosterone. In fact, as shown in this case, aldosterone levels are actually decreased. The mineralocorticoid that's responsible behind all the signs and symptoms is actually 11-deoxycorticosterone, and as the question clearly shows, this is a really high yield concept you need to remember because you're going to be tested on it. But don't worry, it's quite easy. You just need to make the mental association that in 11 beta deficiency, you see an increase in 11 deoxycorticosterone. So in 11, you see 11, 11, 11. Great. Now let's apply the same technique to answer this quiz from the platform. They're asking here about 21-hydroxylase deficiency, so let's try to recall the hormonal profile. First, we have the common feature from all the deficiencies, which is, of course, hypocortisolism. Okay, that's easy. Now, then how's the mineralocorticoid production? It is, try to recall it, we have a 2, so that means it's going downwards. Okay, perfect. And then we have androgen production, which has to be, has a 1, so it's going upwards. It is increased. Awesome. So with that in mind, which option from the ones here fits best? Well, hypokalemia, hypertension, and hypervolemia all suggest an increase in mineralocorticoid activity, so those are automatically ruled out. And the remaining options actually both can happen in cases of an increase in androgen production. But if we have to choose between them, the best choice has to be ambiguous genitalia. This is the typical finding associated with the classical form of 21-hydroxylase deficiency. You see, in 21-hydroxylase deficiency, there are two forms of presentation: the classic form and the non-classic form. The classic form is basically what we have been discussing throughout the whole video. Is the form that typically presents in newborns with the severe findings of both reduced mineralocorticoid production and increase of androgens. The non-classic form, however, is much milder. In here, the deficiency is significant enough to cause androgenic problems, but not enough to affect either the mineralocorticoid or the glucocorticoid profile. These patients present later, anywhere from 6 to 20 years of age, with subtler findings related just to the excess of androgens. A typical example of this is precisely the premature adrenarche in a young girl. Now, regarding the diagnosis, remember that 17-hydroxyprogesterone is the screening test of choice for most patients. However, it's important to keep in mind that in the non-classic form and in the deficiency of 17-alpha-hydroxylase, that test may be falsely negative. An easy way to remember this association is that 17-hydroxy is not elevated in cases of 17 deficiency, so 17-17. And for treatment, you should remember that glucocorticoid replacement therapy with something like hydrocortisone is always needed in all patients except those with the non-classic forms of the disease. In cases of reduced mineralocorticoid production, we replace it with fludrocortisone. In cases of excess of mineralocorticoid production, we block it with spironolactone, and for females with low sex hormone levels, we provide estrogen replacement therapy. And that's basically it. Now use what you've learned to solve this case right here. Let us know your answer in the comment section below. Also, let us know what other topics you'd like to see next. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.